Okay, right now it's about time to go ahead and we're going to cut these elevators off. We've got our center marks. We've got our holes drilled for the joiner wire. If you're using the dowel, you should have your piece cut out from the dowel. Well, you're going to cut that out in a second. But the first step we're going to do is go ahead and cut out the center piece. So I'm going to just line that up with my blade with the edge of the 1/4 by 1/4. Can't speak tonight. And just lightly go ahead and cut that piece off. There's one elevator half. And you shouldn't have to worry about the left or right if it's upside down or not, because you should have a B marked on the very bottom here so you know that what side's what side. So I'm going to put that out of the way and cut the other middle part out. And like I said, I'm just using the side of that. I'm going to use a piece of sandpaper in a minute to finish that off. So there, our centers are done. Our elevators are separated. So now we finally get to see what's actually on the plan. And there's an elevator half, and an elevator half. So the next thing we want to do is take our joiner wire. Well, like I said, before I get into the joiner wire, I'll just touch base on the dowel again. You take the dowel and you're just going to cut the rest of this off. So it's out of there and epoxy everything nice and straight on the plan. Make sure everything's straight, make sure everything's flat. Stick your dowel in your groove from where you cut this part of the 1/4 by 1/4 off and this part of the 1/4 by 1/4 off. Lay it in there, push it up. If you want to check before you glue it, put your stabilizer back in there and make sure the ends aren't touching the sides. And then go ahead and glue your dowel in. You're going to use epoxy on that. Don't use the zap. You want something a little stronger. So now I'm just going to go ahead and mark out underneath here where my wing joiner is going to go. We're back to the wing joiner. And as you can see, it's going to stick out this little bit. Well, we're going to cut a V-notch in here so it becomes a little deeper. Well, I really do for that. Just take my X-Acto blade, and from the center of the hole, I'm going to cut like a little center out. Hope that's on the camera. And then I'm just going to make a V. Just going to take the other side of the blade and cut that part out. Do the same on the other side. So now I've cut a little channel out. And that way, when I push in the joiner wire, now I should just go ahead and spin it and turn it. Your drill bit should have gotten it down far enough. If not, you might have to drill a little bit more. But the idea is to get this down inside this dowel here. And like I said, you want to make sure that everything's straight before we do any gluing. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other piece. Now another trick to do this with is you could take a control rod, the threaded end of the control rod, and just get this V going. Just very slightly. You don't want to cut all the way through the wood. And peel that back. And then take the other side of the joiner wire and stick that in. See how that does. That was a perfect thing. I need to drill out the other end a little bit more, so I'll do that. And there you have it. One working elevator. Now when I put this down, I notice that it's hold one side flat. I notice one end sticks up in the air a little bit, so that means my joiner wire or my drill hole isn't right. So I'm going to drill that out and make that right until when this lays down, everything lays perfectly flat. Then I'll know my joiner wire is good, and all I'll have to do is take some sandpaper, and you kind of just take the sandpaper around the edges. Just give it a little rough up. And once everything's done, you mix some epoxy in and go ahead and push that right down in there. So let me tell you the other little things I can find a quick control rod on here. If you have a control rod, you can make that little V out, a control rod with a threaded end. And you just take that threaded end and you can just slide it back and forth. It kind of works like a piece of sandpaper in there. And you can just make a nice round hole to fit for your dowel. Do that to both sides. And that'll make a nice groove for the dowel, or for the joiner to sit in. I'm sorry, not the dowel. And there you have it. So I'll re-drill out that hole. I've scuffed up the edges of my joiner wire. I'll slide them right in, notch it down. She'll be sitting there. Once I epoxy it, that's going to be gold. That's where it's going to sit. So at the moment, if I lay this down to where my centers are, everything should line up. I shouldn't be, I got my hinges still in there, but I shouldn't be hitting any of my edges with my stabilizer, which I'm not. So I'll go ahead and make those corrections on that, and I'll lay that down. The next time you see this piece, it'll be sitting nice and flat, and that's all we need to do. And that would be the end of everything, and then, oops, yep.